How do we actually use technology to 10x our productivity when it comes to education and educational leadership? If you're new here, my name is Vaughn Littlejohns. I'm a Deputy Principal and Growth Coach. I help people leverage technology to get their time back in a sustainable way while making more impact in their course development, their leadership, and just their personal lives as well. So today I want to talk about how do we actually get our time back and make more impact through the systems that we produce. Now, being the start of the year, it feels like it's just go, 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 go. There is so many urgent and important things getting thrown at us every single day. Now, last week, I was in my normal role as a Deputy Principal, and I was feeling like I was just getting swamped by all these unimportant but urgent things. They just needed to happen. Subject change, class moves, behavior management problems, whatever it may have been, it just kept going and going and going while I had to prepare for various different executive presentations, professional development that I was running, and all these kind of things like developing resources for my lessons. However, the biggest crucial part of all of that, and why I'm reflecting on it right now, is because I'm finding that executive, even students, are struggling with time management. Now, there's a couple of key frameworks I want to cover in this video that have helped me and my teams and my students over the course of the last 10 years as an educational leader. So let's talk about first, success leaves clues, actual time management matrix. We need to be able to categorize what are we talking about and how. So there's a really awesome, basically a matrix on how we can categorize time management. And this is covered by Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, I'll just summarize it really shortly, but there's 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is important and urgent. This is your have to get it done right now because it's super important to our strategic direction of where we're going to next, or it is something to do with relationships. It needs to happen right now. Now, the second quadrant is important but not urgent. This is where we want to spend majority of our time. This is building sustainable resources. This is fostering connection with our relationships. And this is actually focusing on acquiring knowledge and building our skills. We spend most of our time in the urgent and important and urgent, not important areas of this sort of matrix. But the second quadrant, important and unurgent, is where we really need to focus our time. The other two come down to not important but urgent, and then not urgent and not important. And this can be busy work. This can just be really just like we're wasting our time. Now, it's easy to get caught up in other people's urgent problems. So especially when you come into leadership positions, people open your door, or you've got an open door policy, and they'll come and give you a problem. And this problem is to them super urgent and super important, but to you, it is not urgent, or it could be not important, depending on how big of a picture you've got of the actual organization or system. Now, this is really important, that we don't want to deflect their feelings that this needs to happen right now and just dismiss this, because that'll actually build resentment in them. They won't actually feel valued and actually heard. Instead, you want to accept and go, thank you, I'm happy to work through a solution with you, and here we can do it. Now, there's a couple of frameworks I like to do. There's one called P3, P3, F3, past, present, and future. You got 3 minutes for each, and your job as facilitator of this conversation is to put pressure on what was happening in the past, what's the emotion behind this, what's happening now, what's it affecting, how's it making you feel, what is wrong with the situation, and then the future. This is where we flip in a solutions-focused mindset and actually focus on what can we do, what's in our control, what's in our circle of influence, and actually empowers. And it's more about the other person taking responsibility and feeling that they can actually impact this situation rather than you as the leader actually going and solving it for them. You can guide them through, but ultimately they will take away some form of steps for success so they can actually go and do it. Now, from a time management point of view, that helps you immensely. If people are coming to you, if you're a teacher, if you're an executive, if you're a business owner, essentially people are coming to you with problems. They're either focused on what can't happen, they're out of control, they're focused on what they need to happen right now, but it might not be really that important. But ultimately, they just want to feel heard and feel like, look, we're in this together, we're in this as a team. So try the past, present, future framework, and then empower them to actually find their own solutions and implement them themselves. So the other day I was teaching my year 10 students all about time management. Now, being 15, 16-year-old students, yeah, time management is not going to be in their forte. They don't really have those skills just yet, but they're developing them. So this is why I focused on time management. Now, how did I do it? Well, I taught them about the quadrants, but I did it in a different way. I said, write down everything you needed to do to complete that project you did last year. And then they wrote them all down on post-it notes and covered their entire table of all the steps they could remember. I then said, awesome, now figure out where they go in order. Now, once you've done that, okay, great, let's put them into categories. Is this a planning? Is this a production? Is this a finishing step? And then they could see where the buckets are. Now that comes to the second sort of framework that I wanted to talk about, which is called bucketing. Now there's bucketing for project management, but there's also bucketing for personal development. And there's the two different types, but essentially they work in the same way. We are chunking down specific skills into planning, production, or finishing. Whereas if it's personal development, it is knowledge, skill, relationship, impact. Basically, if you look at Stephen Bartlett's Diary of CEO book, he actually talks about it and what we need to do for skill acquisition and actually make sure that we're filling the buckets in the right order. Because essentially, you can't fill somebody else's bucket as a leader if yours is not filled to begin with. And that comes down to your skills and your knowledge. If you don't have those, you can't actually build up anyone else's to begin with. Talking about bucketing, another fancy word of saying it is just chunking things down. We are figuring out where do we need to go, how are we going to get there, and let's chunk these down into bite-sized pieces. Ultimately, we can just sort of step things out. But I really wanted to talk in this video about how do we do that super quickly and super effectively and actually use technology or leverage technology to make that happen for us. Now, one of the strategies I've been doing is actually using Claude, which is the AI of my choice at the moment. And that is basically I put in all the things that I need to do. And then I ask it to categorize it into your 4 quadrants. Is this important and urgent? Is this unimportant and urgent? Where is it? Then I get it to chunk it into the most essential parts first, and then I can hit those with a specific time frame. Now, just a quick side note, if you want to make your AI prompts even better, the best hack you can actually do is use reflective prompting. Now, what does that mean? Basically, at the end of any prompt, you can basically say to that AI, ask me any follow-up questions that would help you make better decisions. And then it'll reflect and ask you questions for context, and then you can basically use it as a one-on-one sort of mentor that guides you in decision making. Now, while we're on the topic of AI, really cool frames at the moment we're using to actually leverage our time. So one of my colleagues is principal in a high school, and he was just getting caught up start of the year with all these unmet expectations from the outside community about, classes, bullying, all these kind of things that sometimes can feel like they're out of the control of the parent or the community member because they can't action anything. Now, they can be super, super complex, but a really awesome strategy that we've been implementing is the creation of AI chatbots. And what are we doing with these? We're actually loading these chatbots up with our knowledge bank, our resources, and our sort of policy documents. And then we are using them to make sure that we are making the correct decision based on policy and procedure. Why is that super important? Well, once we actually have this incident or have this complaint or have this sort of thing that we need to break down and make sure we're actually doing the correct thing, we can feed it through the bot, it'll analyze it, it'll give us some suggestions based on policy and procedure, and then we can go into a conversation in a collaborative frame to say, hey, look, we understand XYZ is the problem. We wanted to make sure we were doing the right thing. So just so you are aware, I've actually run this through our AI bot, which actually cross-references our policies, our procedures with the actions that we've actually implemented. You printed out the steps that were actually completed and the steps that were recommended from the AI bot and showed it to this community member. Here's what we've done. Here's what the AI bot has recommended we've done. What was just dramatic about this was it actually just cut down that conversation, turned it into a collaborative conversation, and less about questioning the principal's sort of leadership skill and if they'd made the right decision, and more about confirmation that they actually are doing their job. They actually do have the students' best interests at heart, and we are following procedure. And that just cut down that huge complaint or conversation down to one simple meeting just to give context and follow up in a collaborative way. So really cool way of using AI at the moment. Now, if you're super keen on learning how to create AI chatbots, things like this, don't forget, I've got a community. We're just starting up at the moment, but click the link in the description below and you can actually come in and we can mentor you on how to do those kind of things. Now, the last one is lesson planning. Now, as a super busy person myself, I'm currently doing multiple courses. I'm running a business. I'm doing a coaching accreditation program, deputy principal. There's just a lot on. Now, what am I doing when it comes to lesson creation and things like this? Now, at the moment, I don't have any materials for my Year 10 timber, and this is really doing my head in because we're in week 4. And the reason I say this is because usually we'd be building by week 2, but because of ordering issues, it hasn't come through yet. So what am I doing? I'm using AI to help me plan my structure. And when I talked about the the time management lesson that I just developed, that was using AI. I basically put in my framework of what did I want to cover, how did I want it to cover, and who was the target audience, gave me a sequence of structure. I got super engaged students, and one of the students were actually saying, "Sir, look at this is what I'm meant for." And it was amazing because they were so involved and they were so keen and passionate about collaborating with their team when we were doing the time management race, when we were just doing the post-it note race. So there's really cool strategies to actually get keen involvement in an authentic way. And that's ultimately why we're using technology. That's ultimately why we're using things like AI to help us structure our lessons, structure our conversations, structure our training, so we can actually get our time back. Because remember, if we talk about Stephen Bartlett's buckets, and he talks about it as knowledge, skill, relationships, impact, and then what others think. But let's focus on what order do we fill those buckets. We focus on what do other people think. Well, we're not necessarily going to make any content. If I thought or I really cared about the opinions of others about making content right now, when I received those 3 hate messages the other day on YouTube, I probably wouldn't make any more. But realistically, I don't care. This is somebody else's opinion. I don't know who they are. I'm doing this for me and the people that I'm actually serving right now. So what are the order of those buckets do we actually fill up? It's super important that we focus on our knowledge acquisition, our skills, our relationships that we build through those skills and knowledge, and then that goes into impact and what other people think. If we do this in wrong order, then we can't actually help people to the best of our ability, because there's a saying, you can't fill somebody else up from an empty bucket. And that's so true. If you are talking about a skill or something and you don't actually know how to do it, well, really, do you know it's going to work? Because ultimately, people want to know that if you're training them in something, that you've done it, you've been there, and you know how to get from A to B. If you don't know this, well, then they're not going to trust you. You're not going to come across as authentic, and you're just then saying you're an expert, but you're not really one. And that is one of those problems when it comes to content creation. You can be perceived as not an expert, but you might have, like, for example, I got 10 years in education and probably about 8 of those in educational leadership. So you can be perceived when people don't know you about different things. And that is why it's the last bucket you want to fill about what do people actually care about. The first is your knowledge, and then it's your skills. You can do that, the relationships can become strong, built on authentic connection, because you're actually sharing impact and sharing your knowledge with those around you. Now, this is a long video all about time management, but it's about actually getting stuff done. So if you implement those things that we talked about, you chunk things down, you focus on your second quadrant, which is unurgent, not urgent, but important, which is relationships, growth, knowledge, acquisition, all those kind of things. And then you use AI or tools like AI, such as chatbots, or just a simple prompting framework, like asking it reflective prompting, such as what follow-up questions do you need to know so you can actually execute on this task more effectively. These will save us time, because in education, the whole point of this is to give somebody knowledge, give someone skill, so they can actually earn money, they can build better relationships, they can actually go on and improve their life or the lives around them. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Now, I'm out for a nice, beautiful hike in the Murray-Morang National Park along the south coast of New South Wales, so I thought I'd just jump on here and reflect on those things. If you want to find out more, or you want some help in your educational journey to make more impact in a sustainable way and prevent that burnout, there's a link in the description to go to our community, and you can join the waitlist, and then when we open the doors you can jump in and get that guidance. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. Don't forget to follow, share and like this if you found it helpful. Remember, effort equals results. I'll see you in the next one.